You are listening to the Courageously Unconventional podcast. If you want to change your life and start living on your own terms, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Lynn Grogan. I'm a certified life coach, and I want to help you take action toward creating your own unconventional life. Each week, I'll share inspiring and unconventional stories from those who have gone before you, as well as actionable steps you can take to start your own unconventional path today. Let's go! Hey there, welcome back to the Courageously Unconventional podcast. I'm your host, Lynn Grogan, and today we're going to dive into a topic that I have been working on with some of my clients recently, the power of immediate action. So a lot of times we have these big old ideas or plans for self-improvement, and we think, oh yeah, I'll do that later. We picture our future selves being more relaxed, more organized, more productive. But we're always doing things later, right? It's always after we find more time or the perfect opportunity. But what I've noticed is that later often never comes unless we're intentional about things. So today I want to flip the script on things. Instead of waiting for a future version of yourself to take action, what if you did it right now? What if right after you finish listening to this podcast, you started doing that thing you've been thinking about immediately on the smallest scale possible? So I'm going to walk you through a scenario to show you what I mean. I recently had a client who was struggling with feeling like she was always behind with her to-do list. So maybe you can relate to this. So her to-do list felt never-ending to her, and her natural response was to keep pushing through with the idea that once she reached inbox 0 or everything was complete, she could finally relax. But the problem was that there were always things on her to-do list and always things being added. So guess what? She rarely ever allowed herself to fully relax. Even if she sat down to read a book or watch a show, there was that nagging voice in her head that kept saying, you should be working, you should be more productive. And I'm sure we've all been there, right? That inner critic that tells us that there's more to do and that resting is somehow a waste of time. The irony is that pushing through often leaves us more drained, not more productive. So my client and I talked about how she might start to change this. I asked her, what's most important right now? What do you need to get done tonight before you can relax? And she realized that most of her tasks could actually wait until the next day. And in fact, she could probably tackle them more efficiently if she was well rested. But she was worried that if she stopped, her brain would keep tormenting her and saying, you should be working. I reassured her that what we were about to talk about wasn't going to be about silencing that voice. It's about acknowledging it while still choosing to rest. You're not wrong for feeling like you should be doing something else because you always could be, but it's considering what's the benefit of resting. You get more energy and more focused. And again, sometimes you might even accomplish more just by taking a moment to pause. So I asked her, are you open to other ideas? And she was. We talked about her schedule for the next day, and we came up with a plan to set aside the first hour of work to tackle the tasks she most needed to get done. And guess what? She tried it, it went well, and no one died, even though there were still things left on her list that evening. By having a plan in place to get the things done, her inner critic was able to calm down, and she felt much more at ease about relaxing for the night. And the overall benefit was that she began to prove to herself that she could change her relationship with her to-do list. And notice that we didn't have to revamp her entire schedule or create a big old master plan to get everything done. We just started with an incredibly small shift that she could do immediately. So whatever it is that you've been putting off, what if you just started right now? What if you stopped waiting for the perfect moment and just started with the smallest step you can imagine? So the idea of starting small probably sounds familiar. Lots of productivity experts talk about it, and for good reason. It is incredibly helpful in creating momentum. For example, in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about the 2-minute rule and offers that if something feels overwhelming, just start with 2 minutes. Just start with something that will take you just a few moments. So if you have this big plan to read before bed every single night, just start with 1 page. And if you're like, I want to start doing yoga 3 times a week, start by just taking out your yoga mat and making it visible. Starting this small is a way to show your brain you're serious about making a shift. but without all that pressure of doing it all at once. It's about making tasks or new habits so easy that you can't talk yourself out of doing them. So if something feels too big to tackle, just start with 2 minutes or the smallest amount of time that seems doable to help build momentum. And so I know what you might be thinking, because I often think this too. It's like, 2 minutes, really? Like, that's not enough to make a difference, so why even bother? But that's actually the point. The goal isn't to fix everything in 2 minutes. That would be impossible. It's just to get started. And once you begin, you're already breaking through the resistance you've been feeling, and that's where you start moving toward creating results instead of being stuck. So maybe you have been meaning to start moving your body more. What would that look like right now, like right in this moment? So maybe it's just walking around the block once, or getting out of the house and grabbing the mail. Again, the goal isn't to go all out. It is to set the bar so low that you can't help but trip over it. Or maybe you want to eat healthier. Instead of creating this massive eating plan and overhauling your entire diet, what if you just started by adding some broccoli tonight? It's small, but again, it signals to your brain that you can make changes. And that's how new habits are born. So I want you to think about something in your own life that you have been wanting to change. And then I want you to ask yourself, how can I shift things right now? So not next week, not when things calm down, but what small change can you make that will get you closer to the outcome that you want? The habits you have today weren't born overnight. You built them over time by repeating certain behaviors, which means you can build new habits the same way by starting small and repeating them. So again, let's make this actionable. Pick one thing, just one, that you can start today. So walk yourself through a scenario in your mind and decide how you want to respond differently. If you've been wanting to stop scrolling so much, maybe you'll set social media limits on your phone and stick to them. Or maybe you'll read the first 2 pages of a book that's been on your Kindle for ages. Whatever it is, do it now, right after this episode. Start today and show your brain that you are capable of change. All right, so that's it for today's episode. If you have been overthinking that thing you want to do, stop it. Just stop it. Try this instead. Take one small action and let me know how it goes. New habits start by changing just one thing at a time. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Courageously Unconventional podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you're curious about life coaching and you want to experience it for yourself, sign up for a free one-on-one private coaching session with me at lingrogan.com or click the link in the show notes. Your first session is free. Until next time. Hey friend, thank you for listening to today's conversation. If you're considering a major career or lifestyle change and you want to talk to someone about this, I'm here for you. You can learn how to work with me one-on-one on my website, which is lingrogan.com, and I also have details in the show notes. See you next time.